Hey guys, so today I just want to speak on Meagan Good. I have been feeling like on her or speaking about her off and on for a couple of months, even before the Jonathan Major situation. I've known about Meagan Good since I was a little kid. I grew up watching Cousin Skeeter. I loved that show, and she was a big part of it. Grew up watching Eve's Bayou with my grandmother. That was a movie that we all enjoyed watching together. She was in it. So I grew up watching her on TV, and then as she got older, when she peaked into her late teens to early 20s, she became like the it girl. Like every guy had a crush on her, every guy wanted her, and she was known as being sexy. Um, but we know over the years she had got married to Devon Franklin, and I was actually really happy for her that she had gave her life to God. She had mentioned that she was previously a Christian, but of course she had, in a nutshell, she probably didn't say it like I'm saying it. She had decided to do her own thing, but then she had gave her life back to Christ, and she had became abstinent, celibate. Okay. And her previous husband or ex-husband now, Devon Franklin, they had eventually wrote a book. What was the book called? The Wait. They had wrote the book The Wait, and I was actually gifted that book by my grandmother. The same grandmother that I would watch Eve's Bayou with and all these movies from the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. I learned so much from my grandmother as well as my mom. But me and my grandmother, we would watch so many movies, and that's one of the memories that I always have with my grandmother. Watching movies and even TV shows, and I did the same with my mom too, watching movies that she watched when she was younger from the 80s and TV shows from the 80s. And I did the same, like I mentioned before, with my grandmother, her mom. My grandmother, she gifted me with that book. And yeah, I read it. It was interesting. All right. So I was really happy for Meagan Good during that time. When she was married to her husband, but I did see that it was kind of challenging for her. Like a lot of women weren't giving her any slack. Like they were actually some women were even cutthroat toward her because she was known as the sexy it girl. Okay, and I guess they felt like she would always have that image. And I could see, I don't know Make Good personally, etc. But I could see that it was like weighing on her to an extent. Like I remember even seeing her on stage talking with her husband about their relationship, and some woman came and asked a question, and I could see that had hurt her feelings. And yeah, her husband at the time had to console her. You might be naturally sexy. There's nothing wrong with that. I feel like you should be sexy for your husband, only that one person. Um, but you shouldn't try to what's the word? Present yourself as sexy to the world for everyone to see, and you shouldn't provoke people. So that may have been a thing of her past, being the sexy woman. She probably would always be an it girl because she's naturally beautiful, period. Look at her face dimensions. Naturally, she has a beautiful face and she has a nice figure too. So she probably would always be an it girl, but to purvey herself, that's the word I was looking for too. To purvey herself as this sexy woman for the rest of her life, that would have to change. She would have to have a made up mind to say, you know what, I'm not going to present to the world myself as a sexy woman. I'm so much more than just being sexy or just my looks. I have so much more to offer. And I can see that Meagan Good, it seems like she's a really sweet hearted person. She really cares for others, and she is more than her looks. What I see, she's more kind-hearted and a little soft-spoken. But I could see during her time of being married to Devon Franklin, who was also a preacher, that it was getting rough for her because a lot of women didn't give her any slack. A lot of women were tough on her because of who she was previously, and I felt like that had made Meagan quit and give up on her marriage, and it just felt like I believe that to her it felt like it was too much on her. that it was too much on her plate. She had to keep on having this backlash on her, keep on defending herself or her husband defending her, and that people will always see her, Christian people, especially Christian women, will always see her as this woman that their men wanted or that just capsulated sexuality, sensuality. And yeah, I feel like that had began to be too much for her as well as her that I feel like that had began to be too much for her as well as her mindset, her still wanting to be a part of the world, to be accepted by the world standards, and she still wants to keep her it girl dynamic, you know? And I felt like that ate up that got to her, and eventually she was the one that decided to give up on her marriage. I don't know, it could have been Devon Franklin too, but I really feel like it was her. Like she was just tired of the backlash from Christian women and women in general. And also, she wanted to do things that she was used to doing. She was used to playing certain roles in movies where, she could be a little bit more free when she was with her husband, she was still doing some of those roles, but I feel like she kind of tried to cover up herself more, and I felt like that didn't feel as natural to her. Now, when you become a Christian woman, you should grow and you should want to become more modest. You still are you, but you do have to grow and become more modest. You should. You don't have to be a grandma. I'm not a woman that is like one of the grandma type of Christian women either. But I know standards. I know when taking it too far. Okay, so yeah, I just feel like she didn't fully have a made up mind. Or she just still had in the back of her mind what she was into and what she was accepted as. And I feel like, she had wanted to get the divorce. I don't know, maybe he did too, but I feel like it was mainly her. I feel like it was mainly her that wanted the divorce because of the backlash and because she wanted to be who she felt she truly was, outside of Christ, just her and her natural. And I see that it seems as though she immediately went back to that. She began to be on that show, and this was before they announced the divorce on Instagram. I believe that they first announced the divorce on Instagram. I know they did, but I feel like that was the first way that they announced the divorce when they had the picture and they said that they were going their separates and they were getting a divorce. Um, she had already started the show. Is it on not Netflix? It's on Prime Video, I think. Um, Amazon Prime, I think. She had just started that show. I can't remember the name of it, but it's with her and some other females. It's kind of like a girlfriend's vibe, living single type of vibe. And she even started like, you know, taking pictures, more raunchier type of pictures too. So I feel like she wants to be free in that dynamic. Like she wants to be free again in that way where she could express herself through taking photos a certain way or wearing things that are a little bit more revealing. And that's how she was used to being, and people accepted her that way in the world. When she would dress more sexy, I never saw her as whorish. Someone, and I'm not justifying this. She was sexy, but not exactly whorish. Like you may see some people that are out there that are like whorish. She wasn't necessarily like that. Okay, but I feel like the world accepted her as this sexy it girl, and she would get, kudos for that. But in the Christmas in the Christian atmosphere or dynamic, she would get backlash for her once being this type of woman and for her trying to change. Like they didn't accept her. They didn't say, "Oh, I thank God that God is bringing Megan closer to him, that she's changing, that she's becoming more of a woman of God." I didn't really hear anybody give her kudos for that. Um, you know, we are human, we should not be praised, but I feel like people didn't like accept her, basically, in a nutshell. People did not accept her. Lots of women did not accept her, and they weren't trying to have it. I don't know if it just was like partly because of fear, like, oh my God, now we have this sexy woman that's a Christian that's in the spotlight that we have to live up to, or, they just, whatever the case may be, a lot of women didn't accept her. I was happy for her um, when she was married to Devon Franklin, even just hearing that she became a Christian, she decided to wait until she got married. I was really happy for her, and it was a bit inspirational too, especially a woman of her type of caliber doing something like that. Everyone should do it, but nowadays you don't really hear those stories from certain people. So it was interesting, and I was happy to hear it. But most women, they weren't accepting of that, and even people that aren't celebrities, um, they they get this backlash too if they are known for being a certain way. And a lot of women, especially Christian women, can be very judgmental. They can be very judgmental in the Christian the I'm trying to think of the word, but basically in the Christian arena, us being Christians, we could a lot of Christian women can be very, very judgmental and very, very um brash and harsh towards other Christian women. And it's a shame. A lot of Christian women don't feel comfortable going to other Christian women because they feel like they're going to be judged, or certain things are going to be thrown in their face eventually, or whatever the case is, that they're basically going to have a negative reaction. And I'm just so tired of that. Um, Everybody's not going to be for everybody. God has certain people that he will align towards you, and that he has in the space to be there for you. And God comes first. You could always go to God first, but God does have certain people for certain people. Everybody is not for everybody, so everybody is not going to like you. Everybody is not going to be there for you, and we just have to learn to accept that everyone is not going to be for you, especially if you're of a certain caliber. If you came from a certain background, if you were like Meagan Good, you were an it girl. Everyone, especially women, aren't going to accept you, and you have to be okay with that. We have to learn to be okay with that certain people aren't going to be able to be conducive to your life, and everyone is just not going to like you, period. So you may have some people that do like you, but they can't be conducive to your life. And then you may have some people that just don't like you, they just don't want to be around you. They just don't agree with anything that you stand for, even if you stand for something good. Okay, and that's okay. Everyone is not traditional. Okay, so we have people in the Bible that weren't traditional, that were meant to be that way. God wanted to use them for them not being traditional, but some people, they only would respect people that were traditional. Like Jesus, for example. He was a revolutionist in my eyes. He was revolutionary, right? And he was not traditional in the sense like following laws and traditions. He broke those laws and traditions to set something new for us. It was all for a purpose. It was not to be disruptive and be disrespectful. It was to have a new testament, okay? To have bring something new and to save our lives. When he was persecuted and eventually he died on the cross, that was all so we can be forgiven of our sins. If he was not radical, if he was not um non-traditional in his approach, then we may not have our sins forgiven the way that they are forgiven now. So it does take some people that are non-traditional to break certain things that need to be broken. God can use people that are non-traditional. I consider myself, I have some traditional ways, but certain ways that are within me are non-traditional. And some people can't, they feel like they can't handle it. And that's all right. And even, I do wish that Meagan Good wouldn't have made that decision. I wish she would have stood the course. But I do understand that partly, and we can't pick. play the blame game. But I do wish that some more women were more supportive of her wanting to change her life and becoming a woman of God. That marriage was ordained by God as far as their story goes. I don't know the full story. They only said what they said, but as far as the story goes, God had aligned them or had allowed them to be together, at least allowed them to be together. And that was changing Megan's life. Okay, it was changing Devon Franklin's life too, but it was definitely changing Megan's life. And I feel like if a lot more women was more accepting of her and pushed her more, it could have changed the dynamic of her relationship with her husband, and definitely her relationship with Christ, her relationship with God. Um, and I feel like a little hurtful for her now that she doesn't have that husband, that she made the decision, or they both came to the agreement to leave from one another. Because yeah, like she had a great husband, surface level. I don't know everything about him. I'm pretty sure it's maybe some annoying things about him as with every other man, but she had a great husband, and I'm pretty sure they had a great life together. And now she decided to leave him, and she started dating. I don't know if she dated other men, but she dated this other man, Jonathan Majors. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of. He was in it's that Creed 3. Is that Creed 2 or Creed 3? The latest Creed that came out, and he was what was his name? I don't even remember the name, but the buff dude that was in Creed that was going against Michael Michael B. Jordan. Okay. I can't think of his name. So he is starting to come into popularity, Jonathan Majors, and she dated him. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh no, I don't know about that. You know, some people you could just tell that it's not going to last. But I'm like, okay, this is who she's deciding to date. She begins to dress more provocative, and she's dating this guy, Jonathan Majors. All right. And then news came out, and this video is not about Jonathan Majors, but I'm just putting this in there. And news came out about Jonathan Majors that he was abusive to an ex-girlfriend, and he's now found guilty of some of the charges that he's now found guilty of some of the charges, not all of the charges. Okay, but they do have video clips of him running away from the girlfriend when she was trying to be aggressive, the ex-girlfriend, when she was trying to be aggressive towards him, and he was just trying to get away. But I also see that some of his ways are unstable. Like it seems like he's unstable. And we know what the Bible says about an unstable man. It says in James 1 and 8 that a double minded man is unstable in all his ways. Okay. I just thought about that. I had just looked up the scripture today, actually. He was through some of the conversations that through text that he would have with his ex. I'm like, I'm seeing some unstableness in him. I'm seeing like he will say this, he wants to um get rid of himself. I don't know if you could say the real word on YouTube. Get rid of himself, and she should be this way, she should be that way. It's like he had a personality disorder almost. So Megan left her devoted husband that would stand by her side for this man who has some unstable ways, or is unstable in all his ways. Okay? And he's unstable in his ways according to the Bible. And I believe that Meagan Good and him are no longer together. So it's not like she left her husband for him, I don't think. But it's like she thought that the grass was greener on the other side, that if she goes back to what she was used to, then she would now lead or live a more comfortable life. She'll feel more happy, she'll feel more like herself. But in the end, she's still going through trials and tribulation, and now she's getting backlash from the world too. People, and especially women, are saying that she's, I won't say crazy, but like she's standing by this man's side that is abusive or that is in DV, which is domestic violence, and that's now in jail, I believe. All these sorts of things. So she's still getting backlash. Like it stopped for a moment, but now she's back to getting backlash. And I'm going to decide to pray for Meagan Good because I do care about her. I care about a lot of people. Okay, I believe that God has developed that within me to care for many people. Um, and I'm going to go back to praying for different people that God leads me to. The people that God will lead me to pray for, I will pray for. My prayer, my new prayer for Meagan Good is that she will come back to Christ. She will come back to the Lord. Don't know if her and Devon Franklin will ever get back together. But I'm just praying for her relationship with Christ and her soul, her to be restored, like for her to come back to Christ, basically. Um, she may still have a relationship with God and pray, but for her to really come back to Christ and to not this time to not worry about what other women have to say about her, and for her to just stand strong. She's in her 40s now, so even if she wasn't, it doesn't matter what age you are, but for her to just stand strong and stand on her own 2 feet and just lean on the Lord. Okay, that's all we need. I had to learn to be like that. I was growing up, I had my mom and my older brother to be there for me in certain ways, and they would stand up for me tremendously when I needed them to. All I had to do was tell them something, and they will come to my rescue. They could, even if I didn't go to them and I would just come home looking defeated, they could tell that something not so good happened, and they would ask me about it, and they would come to my rescue. But later down the line, I had to learn to stand up on my own 2 feet. I had to learn to depend on the Lord, not depend on Daveenah, but depend on the Lord and know that the Lord fights my battles. And the Lord has all vengeance. And the Lord, and just knowing how to stand on my own 2 feet, knowing how to do things for myself. I feel like I have always grown to know how to do things for myself, but in certain ways, basically standing up for myself, I had to learn how to stand on my own feet when it came to defending myself, to standing up for myself, and to also trust in the Lord and not just worry about people being there for me, and also not to worry about what other people have to say and what other people think about me. I hope that you enjoyed this video, that was beneficial to you. Just expressing myself. I'm just sharing my unpopular opinions, okay? Feel free to chime in the comments if you have any responses that you would like to make. Keep it positive, okay? Let's keep it positive, not negative. You may have a different opinion than I, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree. Our opinions are like belly buttons, as people would say. We all have one, and it's okay to disagree. So, if you do have anything that you would like to say, as long as you keep it positive, you can comment down below in the comment section. I would love to hear your opinion. I would love to hear your thoughts. I love conversing with others, so feel free to chime in. All right, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye. Oh. Don't forget to check out the current events section on this channel. I have a current events playlist where I talk about different current events where I'm just expressing myself, my own unpopular opinions, and sometimes God speaks to me too through these messages. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in these topics. All right, bye bye.